La la. Hello peeps and welcome back to Project Hospital. Welcome back to Campaign 3, where we've been taking deep looks at different aspects of staff and rooms and the hospital in general. We've covered quite a lot: nurses and the doctors, the wards and the various rooms. We've been working on technicians, specialised technicians, mainly in the last episode for diagnosis rooms. One thing I forgot to mention though is that if a patient crashes in a ward and they need to use the defibrillator, this thing here, they will need a technician. A technician will need to come to the ward and actually use that piece of equipment. So now the defibrillator on the ward, as we covered in our in-depth look at wards, it requires this item to be in place. And I was recommending having these types of rooms close to the ward, just because it would reduce the walk for patient transfer nurses, from the ward to here, right? And then you can always just get patients, walk-in patients that need an ECG in this particular case, because this is a cardio room, to just wait here because they can walk around on their own. She's looking a little bit rough, isn't she? Shall we see about getting rid of that vomiting? She's got a high fever. Antipyretics, give her those, and prescribe a little bit of rest, maybe something for the pain, because she's in pain, and then hopefully the ECG will help work out which one of these that she might have. Anyway, there we go. That's Susan Baker. So another good reason to have this particular technician close is that she can come and use this defibrillator on these wards in her department. So that's another good reason that I didn't mention. Okay, nice. A lovely bit of feedback that I had about my room designs, and now that they've said it, I just think, oh, bums, I wish I had done that, is the toilets in these rooms. In all my room designs that I'm making, I've got them at the back of the room, and they said, well, why don't you, hey, look at this bit of wall. They said, why don't, or what you should have done, or why don't you put the toilet by the door, right? So putting it here, like in a hotel, and then you've got a whole wall here of windows, bright and airy, and then people don't walk all the way through the room. If they come to use the toilet from somewhere else, they can just pop in and out again. And it seems so obvious now. I've played hotel games. I've always built the toilets by the door. Why wouldn't you? So that's very bizarre. And I should have done that. That would have been nice. That would have been a nice thing. Indeed, it would have been. So, the other technicians then that we're missing is labs. So we're going to be getting into the labs a little bit today. There's not really a lot to be said about labs, to be honest. So we used to have stat labs, right? Oh dear, look how busy this is getting. We used to have stat labs, and they would do all the lab work for patients, okay? They would do all the lab work for patients. But in a recent update, medical laboratories actually became its own department. It did, indeed. It became its own department. What's going on with this dude? So I'm going to talk about this in a minute. So they don't, like X-ray, they don't have hospitalized patients. They don't have their own patients, if you like. So there's no patient list for this. It's just medical laboratories, and we can see that we have 3 different types of laboratories now, but we can also produce waiting rooms, the cleaning closet to keep everything clean, and whatnot. And then of course we do have the staff list. There we go. And it's easy to see here that we've got a couple that haven't quite got their specializations in place. So yeah, it's become a bit of a bigger thing now. So let's have a look here. Advanced biochemistry. So we've covered the USG, the cardiology, and the neurology. Kind of covered neurology. Oh yeah, X-ray. We haven't covered X-ray, so maybe we'll do that in the next episode. X-ray. We might even get to them today. We'll see. But advanced biochemistry is your specialisation for anybody working in any of the labs. So here we are. We're doing the advanced biochemistry technicians. Now, with the labs, with the stat labs, it used to be quite nice because you can see here that Dana here is working on clinic patients, and then over here we have Robert Lopez who works on hospitalised patients, and I've given him this. I haven't given it to him, I employed him because he has this moves much faster. The fact that he walks around the hospital much faster is great, because when they are working on hospitalised patient tests, right, they actually walk all the way to wherever those samples were taken. This could be the trauma centre. This could be what's this? The ward for emergency, the emergency ward. It could be the ICU. It could be any of these diagnostic rooms. Even they could come to one of these diagnostic rooms if they've taken samples. They could be traipsing all over the hospital to go get it, right? So what used to be nice about the stat labs is that you could have a stat lab by the ward and just have your technicians looking after the hospitalised patients, and you could have another one by the clinic area for your walk-ins to come and wait for their results, and they would just be your clinic patients. And that was nice and neat, and they would do, a stat lab would do all the tests. But what they've done is they've split all these tests up into 3 different labs, and now it becomes much more complicated. It's not that simple anymore. And because this is a pre-built hospital, this lab here was where the stat lab originally was, and they've just replaced it now with this one is the hematology lab. So hematology is all your blood work, fully equipped laboratory capable to provide blood and serology related tests, right? Okay, so now while this dude can end up having to walk almost anywhere in the hospital, most of the time, most of the blood tests will come from the emergency clinic. It's not exclusive, it's just that most of them will. So a logical place to have your hematology labs is either in your walk-in clinics, in emergency, or somewhere around your trauma centre or your emergency ward, or even splitting them up. But the lab equipment can be quite expensive. And shall we have a look at what's involved in building a hematology lab? Should we go up to the empty floor? Yes, let's go up to this. Oh, there we go, auto saving. So if we come into here, the hematology lab, so the smallest it can be is a 4x4. And in here we can see that we absolutely have to have a bin. We need some glassware, and we can see here that we've got glassware, and glassware, is that burette? I don't know what this is. A glassware small. This is it is all very small, right? And I'm pretty sure that if you just put one of these in, it will satisfy all of these. It's similar with the bin, right? If you only put one of those bins in, it'll satisfy all of it. And similar situation with the sink. You can use the kitchen sink or the lab sink. One of those will satisfy both. See, there we go. And if we put in a bin, there we go, satisfy both. And we can see here that we need to have a PC. So one of the new with this update, one of the new things was these half desks. They've made sort of lab desks, look, and they now hold the PCs. There we go. So you can actually stick the PC on them, and we can see that it's turned blue because it needs a chair in order for it to operate. There we go, and the chair turns blue when you put it over the blue arrow to say that it's partnering up with that PC, which is very nice. They need a printer, so we could put in oh look, this is the lab. Slightly different, isn't it? Will the printer go on there? It certainly will. There we go. And then you can see that we're getting into equipment. So we have a hematology analyzer, mandatory equipment for labs. It provides a wide spectrum of blood sample analysis, an RAA machine, and things like this. So what we could do is we could, I believe, if we just spin this round, pop this on here like that, and I think the stools are optional. I think they would probably be more comfortable if you put the stools in, but I don't think that they need it. Sample storage, these are quite new, I think, and that can go on the, can that go on the wall? I'm not actually sure. But let's get a... Oh dear, we're actually running out of space. I wasn't going to spend the money on it, but I have. If we pop this here, can't use the sink now, but let's not worry about it. So glassware, I'm pretty sure if we put in one of them... There we go. Does this go on the wall? This might actually go on the wall. I'm not entirely... Oh no, it does there. No, it does. There it is. Excellent. We've now got nowhere to put this. Sink. So oh, there we go. Apparently that works. There we go. So that's a very, very small lab, but it costs quite a lot of money. I mean, that alone there is 1,300 doubloons. So yeah, it's an expensive way to go. To now have a lab at the ward and in the clinic and splitting them up that way. But there we are. So there is your hematology. And like I say, they don't exclusively do blood exams in the emergency clinics. So just bear that in mind that, you know, perhaps having your wards together might work quite nicely for your lab assistants that are traipsing around to all these different rooms that they can go to, because as I say, they can they don't only go to the wards, but they will go to these rooms to pick up I don't think they'll go to this room, but these diagnostic units that they'll go to pick up results as well. So yeah, something worth bearing in mind. Yes. I don't know what he's performing. Well, it's interesting because he's only working on hospitalised patients, yet he's just called somebody in. So, sure, okay. There we are. Right. Anyway, so what else do we have? Another lab that we have. We've got another one over here. So this is where another stat lab would have been, but they've replaced it. And this one is a microbiology lab. Ooh. So they provide cultivation and testing of various samples. They're your petri dish people, right? So what's going on with Christopher? Oh look, he's got his... He just needs antibiotics, right? And he's fairly uncomfortable and he's got fever. Let's see. Should we give him things to deal with it? Maybe just some painkillers, why not? Okay. So here we go. I've got them working on both clinic and hospitalised patients. And they're busy working away in here. This is quite a nice little setup. They've built really nice rooms. I'm not going to design my own ones because I actually think that they build the default ones are pretty nice, right? So now microbiology, most of their examinations will come from internal medicine. So this is probably the internal medicine department. Yep. Because again, not all, but most will be internal medicine. So having it near to there just seems like a sensible way to go. And shall we have a look at what goes into one of these? Ooh, we want to go back to here, into the microbiology. So again, 4x4. There it is. And so we have a fume hood. This is new for this particular department. Must be placed on a wall. Interesting. Look, we're learning. Okay, let's build a wall. So, there it is. Ooh. Specialized laboratory equipment used to limit exposure to hazardous or toxic fumes, vapors, or dust. There we are. They also need the sample storage, a desk with a PC and everything, a sink and glassware and whatnot. But we can also see that they have this microscope, which is fantastic, which makes sense, doesn't it? Yep. It is used to analyze a wide range of microbiology cultivations. And then we have the microbiological I struggle. Incubator, specialized equipment involved in cultivation of bacteria and or fungus. Look at that. It's absolutely huge. Oh look, it can't go that way. It has to go that way. Oh, does it go on the floor? It goes on the... No, it was on the desk. Oh. It's definitely supposed to... Oh, it can go on the floor. Hey, that's weird. Can they stack? No. Okay. There we are. So this is the microbiology lab. They've got 3 pieces of specialized equipment there. Excellent. And then the last one, which is the histology lab, which I think... Here, we have one here. Histology, again, not exclusively, but most of your tests will come from general surgery for histology. So let's take a look at them. Here they are. Should we spin this round? And we can see here their pieces of equipment. We've got one lady in here. Do we have any... There we've got, he's handling samples, so he's coming back by the looks of it, and it does look like he went to a different department, doesn't it? So he is handling samples, he's on his way back, but he came from what seems to be somewhere over here, you see, and this is emergency over here. So yeah, not exclusive. So that's a lot of time in his day walking around rather than actually processing results. So let's talk about that. So biochemistry gives access to various stat laboratory tests, even though we don't have stat labs anymore. They need to update that. Advanced biochemistry, so this is the specialization that they can move into. Advanced biochemistry. Advanced biochemistry increases effectiveness of laboratory tests. So that's absolutely fantastic. We're more likely to get a wider range of results and know more about what it is that they're processing if they have advanced biochemistry than compared to somebody without it. So that's really fantastic to know. That is fantastic to know. So walk-in patients will wait by the lab. We can see here that she's processed results for this gentleman here, Daniel Hill, and she just hands them to him at the door, whereas this guy has to walk all over the hospital to sort out what he's doing, which is why it's nice to get that fast tray. And he's also got clean shoes, look, clean feet, so that's really good. That's really, really nice. And he is currently processing results. And it does take quite a while for them to go through a single test. It really, really does. It can take a long old time. I'd like it if we, because it said there who he was processing tests on. And it would be nice if you could click on that and it would show the patient's sheet. That would be really nice. So shall we look at what's involved in a what is it? Histology, that's it. So 4x4, yeah, 4x4, here we go. And again, so they've got the microscope. Let's get a nice table down here. Okay. Oh, medical centrifuge. That's a big old thing that used to go in the stat lab. I remember that. And lab analyzer. We've always had these kicking around as well. Oh, and a stool analyzer. Yeah, so these were taken from the original stat lab and they've just been thrown into histology. Did we read about this? So fully equipped laboratory capable to provide microscopic analysis of various samples. There we go. So yeah, nice. Pretty pretty good. But yeah, a little bit more difficult to manage effectively now that they've become their own department and split into multiple labs and whatnot. You know, their placement needs much more consideration. In fact, so much so that it can make you consider the placement of all your wards. You know, do you keep all your wards together type thing, and stuff like that. You know, just to try and reduce how much your hospitalised patients, people are wondering. And as a result, it probably is worth splitting these two up when you can afford to do so, you know, or it's getting particularly busy. Yeah, that's it. If I could click on that and get the patient sheet so I know who that is, that would be really nice. Now, something that I don't like about these stat labs is that we have, let's see, we might be able to find a better example. He's just been called. We don't. So, okay, let's think about this. So on a bunch of my departments, the specialised diagnostic rooms like the cardiology and the USG, all that sort of stuff that these technicians work in, these rooms, most of them in my hospital are closed at night because they don't see a lot of patients. And what can happen is that I can have clinic patients walk in that need something happening in one of these rooms, and they are sitting outside the room all night long. And then you get those complaints saying this patient has been sitting here all night long, they're getting fed up and they're going to go home. So what you can do is you can cancel the test and you can say hospitalise them and all the rest of it, and just do some other bits and then put the test back on, and then in the morning they'll have the test, right? So that's a good way of getting around that. Now this can be a problem because this is not the case with the labs. They'll just sit there and wait. So even if we knew which one it was out of these two, without doing this fungal activation, so let's say I knew it was this, because I think they both are antifungal ointment, so I can say, hey, just give him the treatment, don't worry about waiting for the results on this, just give him the treatment and send him home. And I can't do it because even though I've selected it, he will sit here and wait for his fungal cultivation. He will not go back to the doctor beforehand. And while with this guy, that's probably fine, and I don't think this is particularly overrun, this particular department, so he's getting his results now. Sometimes you can have hidden symptoms that are pulsating, or they might not even be hidden. You just know that they could crash soon, and you would rather hospitalise them quickly and get some other tests going on them while waiting for whatever lab results they've got going on. But you can't do it. They will just sit outside that room regardless of what you try and do until they collapse. So it's important, I would say, to make sure that your labs are processing results really quite quickly, because you can't do anything else with the patient while they're waiting, which I think's probably not a good thing. I think it would be nice if that could be resolved. They shouldn't be stuck outside the lab, I feel. Yeah, so there we are. There are our lab technicians. So while we're here, the last type of technicians that we have is a very similar department in that it doesn't have its own patients. It gets patients from other departments and then sends them back, is radiology. And this has, of course, radiology specialised technicians in order to use all this wildly expensive equipment. Radiology is so expensive. As soon as they say we need a new X-ray room or CT scanner or MRI or whatever, my goodness, these rooms cost money. If we go into, so we want to look at these. So an X-ray room, an 8x6, 23,500 doubloons. Look at that. CAG room. We don't even have one of those. That's a 35,000 doubloon room. This one's 60,000. The MRI, of which we have two here, 60,000 each. Wow. And over here we've got the CT room. That's 45,000. Yeah, so I mean, and we've got a bunch of X-ray rooms here, so they're like 23,500. We've got 3 of them here. So when these get busy, just building another one or whatever and staffing it isn't necessarily always available, which is why I tend to micromanage what patients are coming to X-ray as much as I can, or radiology as much as I can, because this can become problematic, this department. You know, it's really expensive to have this department going. Yeah, so wow, she gets depressed and is often late for work. Well, great job, Brooke, great job. So we can see here at the moment that this has got none in the day, low at night. So you might think, well, you know, why do we have so many of them? Why not have a second CT room, which is high at night? All I can say is that what's under heavy demand seems to constantly change. Sometimes both these rooms are absolute critical, and this has nothing happening, and then it can swap and change. And sometimes these X-rays are at critical, and then other times they're sort of medium or whatever. It swaps and changes, so you don't want to react too quickly, I would say, to building another one if you did have like staggering amounts of money. And that sometimes just tweaking the staff in here can help a great deal, particularly splitting up. So you can see here that we've got 2 of these MRI rooms, and this one does clinic walk-in patients only day and night, and this one does hospitalized patients only day and night. And but if I try, and even though that these have both got none in the day, as soon as I close one down in the day and put one member of staff doing both, this will become critical and it'll overload and blow up, and it doesn't blow up. But yeah, so it's, you know, it's a constant balancing act over here. And when I get a notification of a hospitalized patient or a clinic patient saying they've been waiting an awfully long time for this examination room, I tend to take a look to see if they really need that exam. And that sort of stuff. What would be nice is if I could see who is queuing for a particular room. So if I could say, right, who across the entire hospital, what are all the people currently waiting for an X-ray, you know, and just then run down that list. You know, it'd be nice to see, but we don't seem to have that at all. Which is a bit of a shame. And that, again, it would be quite nice for the labs. Not that you can do anything once they're stuck there, which you can over an X-ray. You can cancel that X-ray, hospitalise them, go and do other things, try and find other tests to help, you know, find out what's wrong with them. But I think that's probably it for X-ray. Although what I would say is that these used to be really finicky to build. Let's see about this. So if we were going to build one of these bad boys, let's see, shall we build a CAG room? Really, really expensive. So 5x5, this one. Right, okay. So because the CAG machine comes in multiple parts, right? So we've got this bit. So this is 25,000 grand. Oh, hang on a minute. Okay, no, they have made it easier, right? So once upon a time, this rail and this bit that goes over the bed, these are all separate parts, and trying to get them all to link up and work was an absolute nightmare. So we can see here that we need this control panel, and as soon as I pick up the control panel, we see this goes blue and this purple arrow turns up. Doesn't look like there's anywhere too specific for it. We don't want to get in the way of the purple arrow, because I think purple arrows and grey arrows, it talks about sort of the way the patients and thingamajigs move. However, you can put this, so if you have a separate office area, you know, with your PC and stuff, you could put this in there so that they can control it from the other room. And you can see there that it's got the grey arrow here to say this is where the staff member approaches it. But then it's got a blue arrow there. And then with this OP digital imaging thing is saying, right, that must go there. And now everything turns blue, so it's all paired up and this will now function correctly. But what's nice is it doesn't need to be near this. So you'd be able to put this in a separate room and all that sort of business, and it would work absolutely fine. So you just have to be mindful of those sorts of things when you're building these rooms, but they have made it much easier than it once was. I can tell you that for sure, because that CAG machine was an absolute nightmare to build and get it to function properly at one point. But there we are. So we've sort of covered technicians and their two main departments, also just covering a little bit of extra information about the specialised technicians. Again, another good reason to have them by the ward is that they may need to use the defibrillator. So yeah, that's having them close over here and getting clinic patients to walk to them is probably better than having these over at the clinic and then they have to run all the way to the ward. It's a bit problematic, right? So there we are. Yeah. One more in-depth episode, as far as I can work out, is going to be our janitors, which I don't think will take too long. And then we shall just continue to run the hospital. If we can stop spending money, we'll be able to satisfy this second criteria here, which will effectively complete the hospital. But if it'll let us continue, we might look at trying to unlock cardiology and neurology. I'd quite like to look at them. If that becomes problematic in this hospital, then we'll take a look at them in a sandbox hospital, because I'd quite like to build my own hospital. I might do it as a stream or a couple of big streams, just so that we can bish bash bosh through it, and it'd be nice if you can join me and ask questions and stuff like that, and then I'll add it to this series playlist after those streams happen. That's probably how we'll do sandbox. I think that'd be nice. I think that'd be pretty cool, and we can build the hospital together and try and make it as efficient as possible. That would be nice. What you may have noticed is, as we've got further through the in-depth episodes, we've had less pop-ups of problems in the hospital, because we're slowly getting through it, right? And making it run more and more efficiently all the time. So it'd be nice to go over janitors at the beginning of the next episode and then just run the hospital for a little bit. That might be kind of nice, and deal with any problems that crop up. Thank you for watching. I hope you've enjoyed the episode. If you did, please hit that like button. As long as you are here, why not take your first step on the path to total coolness by supporting me via Patreon. The cooler you are, the harder I work, which means even more SHIZWAH.